Gimbals are a great way to get into professional looking video, as they smooth out movement while moving your camera. This is especially useful if your camera or lens doesn't have stabilisation, often the case with more budget-friendly options. But the problem is that gimbals themselves can be very expensive. That's why today I'm reviewing the Zhiyun the Cinepeer Weebill 3E, which is a small budget gimbal, costing just $249. While I appreciate is not nothing, is a good price for a gimbal. But is it actually any good? Well, let's find out. So Zhiyun have sent me this gimbal to review, but I've not been paid for the review and they have no say in the final content of the video. Now let's see what comes in the box with the Weebill 3E. As you can see, the box is fairly large, but of course, as this is a gimbal, it's actually a pretty decent sized package that comes in, not too big. Compared to the 3S, which I have reviewed previously on this channel, which came in an absolutely huge box, which I didn't even know where to put when I was opening it up. And inside the box, it is all pretty much pre-packaged into a single carry case. And here is that branded carry case. As you can see, it's made of a kind of foam kind of thing. Unfortunately, there's no carry handle on this case, but I still like the idea of keeping everything all together. And inside, the obvious thing is the main gimbal itself, which sits nicely in the middle. It's nice that you can package this all away. Very similar to the 3S, which I have reviewed previously, and is not too heavy. I understand that weight is about 1 kilogram with no camera mounted on it. So just popping that back in its location. The other things that we have are a very handy little extra tripod mount, which goes onto the bottom of the gimbal. What a horrible noise that was. And this is the mounting plate. You mount the camera through the screw thread through the center of there, and then it adjusts up and down here once you are adjusting it. And the other thing in here, I'm not sure what it is. Let's find out. I imagine it's the USB cable, and yes, it is. Let's open that up. And the accessories are 2 USB cables, one USB-C to USB-C, and another one which is USB-A to USB-C. A small Allen key for adjusting, and here is the screw thread that goes through the mounting plate to actually mount it to the camera. So a nice little set of accessories, and very compact, a nice little case to keep it all secure in. Again, it would have been great if that had a carry handle, but hey, we don't on this occasion. And in addition to this, I do have the Master Move accessory, which is a Sling Grip, so that you can either hold the gimbal with 2 hands for extra stabilisation, and it helps you get closer to the ground. This has been sent to me separately and is bought separately, crucially. So this gimbal weighs just about 1 kilogram without a camera mounted, and has a reported maximum payload of around 3 kilograms, which we will look at in more detail a little later. This 3-axis gimbal has fluid movement, which makes it very easy to operate. It has Bluetooth functions so that you can connect to your camera if you are using a compatible Sony, Canon, Fujifilm or Panasonic camera. This means that you can start and stop recording from the controls on the gimbal itself. An optional wrist sling is also available, which helps shooting closer to the ground, and to distribute the weight if you are holding the gimbal by both hands. This is helpful, but it does add weight and bulkiness to the gimbal, so I'd only pick this up if it is essential to your shooting, as this extra for what is essentially an extra handle is another $140. Setting up the gimbal though is straightforward enough, though as always balancing the camera and lens takes time. Remember, of course, using a zoom lens which extends the barrel will cause the gimbal to lose balance. So this really is best used with a fixed barrel zoom like the Sony 18-105 or a prime lens. Holding the gimbal is pretty comfortable with the rubber grip that feels secure, though there is no wrist support on this smaller model, which means that it can get a little uncomfortable after prolonged use. Though you can get this extra support with the extendable grip, which does help a lot. And of course, that also helps with shooting lower to the ground. Looking at the gimbal's controls, there's a small screen that shows you all the operational information. It has a settings, power and menu button. It has a power button and a menu button and a mode button and a scroll wheel on the right of the screen and a thumbstick, mode and record button on the left. Now all these buttons are much easier to use if you're right-handed. Again, us lefties have been forgotten about. On the rear side is a scroll wheel and a trigger button. These control certain functions such as using the control stick to pan or tilt the gimbal, most of which are reasonably easy to get your head around, and to be honest, mostly from trial and error you can work out what's going on. There's also a charging port to charge up your gimbal, nice that it is rechargeable, and the gimbal arms can lock into place with 3 lock switches for each of the axes. This helps massively during setup to stop your camera swinging around all over the place and also keeps it nice and secure whilst in storage. I won't go through this whole setup now as this will be a really long video, but of course if you'd like me to go into depth, drop a comment on the video and I will do a nice long setup video. And for more reviews like this, like the larger 3S version which I reviewed a little while ago, please subscribe to the channel and drop a like on the video. They all help me out a lot. So to mount your camera, you use the mounting plate that we saw during the unboxing. This screws in quite easily using an Allen key and is adjustable during the setup, depending on the size, weight of the camera and lens that you are using. There is also a quick release option which is great for swapping your camera between horizontal and vertical shooting, rather than a complicated remounting and rebalancing of your camera, though it probably will need a little bit of rebalancing. But the important bit, of course, is how good is the stabilization? And well, in simple terms, it provides a much better stabilization than either the in-lens or camera stabilization by a considerable distance. In use while walking will reduce the motion of walking by quite a lot. And even while running, whilst obviously it's clear that you're still running, it smooths out more of the kind of more violent, shaky moments of the movement, which, to be honest, is about as much as you can ask for from a gimbal of this size and price. And of course, if you really want to avoid shake, with newer Sony cameras, for example, you can use active stabilization, which does crop in your image slightly, but together with the gimbal can reduce shake and movement even more. The main stabilization mode that I use is pan follow, which enables the pan access but disables the tilt access. There is a lock mode which disables both, follow which enables both pan and tilt movement, as well as the more niche settings like POV and vortex, which gives much more looser movement for POV or camera spinning in vortex mode. These are kind of a bit novelty just to try out once or twice. I didn't find really much practical use for these two modes. For the most part, I found pan follow is the main one to use. If you're recording yourself or following a subject, it feels like it makes the most sense. Of course, you can fine-tune how the gimbal responds to movement very easily in the settings I've found. Using the smooth setting and the deadband area make the gimbal respond a little slower. Sounds counterintuitive, but it does make the movement of the gimbal a little smoother. Using the gimbal with heavier lenses, I have noticed the camera does get slightly unbalanced after prolonged use or particularly quick movements of the gimbal. So it is worth bearing in mind that for longer shoots with a lot of action, you might find that the gimbal is actually quite unbalanced by the end of shooting. Whilst the stabilization and max payload isn't quite as good as the larger version, it is much more compact and makes it a much more versatile option. If you're on the market for a gimbal and are using a smaller camera such as the ZV-E10, like I'm doing here, then the Cinepeer Weebill 3E is a great choice. I'll leave links in the description where you can pick one of these up. But for $249, this gimbal is well worth considering.